Welcome to VCR, Vintage Cinema Rewind, bringing old movies to new viewers. I'm Blake.
And I need a woman!
For those who don't know what that reference is, well, you're about to find out because we're doing The Beast, also known as The Beast of War from 1988.
Which title do you prefer?
The Beast.
Yeah, I was going back and forth on it for a while, but I'm like, just The Beast itself is more...
It's just succinct.
Yeah, it's engaging.
Yeah, which is the original title of the movie. I don't know why they added The Beast of War. Maybe to differentiate itself?
I don't know. It's a strange... Yeah, I don't know. Actually, and also I found this out. The Beast of War is like a shark exploitation movie released last year.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a little tough to find this one, honestly, and that's maybe not accidental.
No, this movie is... We'll get into it, but I'm just going to put my cards on the table. I really liked this movie.
Yeah, so did I.
It's a bleak, miserable experience that really cheered me up.
Yeah. Well, and before we really get into it, the reason why we're doing this movie is, sorry, Nick, it's a year late, but we did get a request from a listener named Nick to
Our
do
one
this
and
movie.
only listener, Nick.
And yeah, we got it last year. I think it was in January to do this movie, and then we had our schedule, and then Trump started doing Trump stuff, and we switched over to foreign movies. And so this is kind of us circling back to do an American movie since we did a full year.
It's what's that quote from Z, the movie we just did? Like, when in doubt, blame the Americans. Hey, and Nick, if you're listening, I just want you to know that we love you, and if you ask us to do something, we will eventually get around to it.
Eventually.
It might take 15 months, but we will eventually get around to it.
Yeah. I think maybe where it stands for us to start talking about it is probably just get into the plot summary, because getting into that high-level summary will help us facilitate maybe why this movie is not as widely available or as seen as it maybe should be.
It's sort of... I'll just do it right now. And it's one of my favorite plots in that it's a plot you can summarize in like one or two sentences, right? Basically, this is the Soviet occupation into Afghanistan during the Cold War. I think this takes place in like the early 80s.
Yep.
And basically a tank full of 4 Russian soldiers storm a village, butcher it, and then the native population turns around and decides to hunt them for revenge.
Yeah.
And that's basically it. It's
a pretty simple cat and mouse game.
Yep, a cat and mouse in the desert with a tank.
Yeah.
I mean, what more could you want? You can imagine this would be maybe a tougher sell in 2026, or maybe not, actually.
So this movie got buried when it came out for reasons we'll get into when we get into the deep dive.
Mm-hmm.
After that, it was seen by a few people. It gained a bit of a cult status. But then again, with 9/11 happening and everything happening after that, this movie kind of got reburied again. This is a really interesting movie just because of how our timeline has shaken out.
It's funny how, like, I think when this movie came out, people would have latched onto it.
Yeah.
Then the whole war in Iraq thing happened, and suddenly people might have been a little repulsed by it. But now, 20-ish years after that, we're back to being latched onto it. Like, it's almost like... So what's interesting about this movie, and lots of other people have made this comparison, is that all the Ruskies are played by Americans.
Yes, with American accents.
Who don't even bother trying to masquerade as Russians, right? So, I mean, looking at this movie in 2026, it's almost like a brutal metaphor for American imperialism.
Yeah.
Which was, I doubt, the intention at the time.
No,
or
I don't
maybe
think
it
so.
was. I don't know.
Well, and I think that's a very clear choice that the director made in making this movie. And, I think that you could compare this to what does this really, really effectively in the last 10 years is Chernobyl, the miniseries.
Mm-hmm.
And it just creates a way to empathize with characters that you might not normally empathize with, like specifically from the Western audiences with the Russian characters. If we were just reading Russian subtitles, we wouldn't feel as much in their shoes. And then because of us being more in their shoes, it does kind of create this uncomfortable, like turning the camera back on us kind of thing for what's kind of happened since the 80s.
So, I mean, it's interesting. And I mean, it's the pathetic fallacy, right? It doesn't matter what the original author intended the meaning to be, but like it almost kind of becomes either an intentional or an unintentional metaphor for, like I said, American imperialism, the war in Iraq, right? I mean, I think it's just, you can argue whether this is a good thing or a bad thing or not, but like, I mean, movies, in particular American movies, do this so often where they're like, he's, like Brad Pitt and Troy should be Greek, but it's just Brad Pitt, right? Or like, so, you do just kind of like, oh, I guess they're Russians who inexplicably speak English. But like, it's funny. One of the main characters' name is like Korvanchov or something. And I'm like, you look like a Kevin to me. You sure sound like one. But I mean, I've seen people on Letterboxd say they want to see a remake with actual Russians and Russian subtitles. And I'm like, yeah, I would watch that. But maybe you would lose the subtext.
Absolutely. I fully agree. And I don't know that this one necessarily needs a remake. Like, does everything it kind of sets out to do.
Yeah.
And in it also makes a pretty enjoyable experience. Like, it's a pretty entertaining 2-hour movie.
Yeah, it definitely is. I really enjoyed this movie. You could maybe argue it could have been trimmed just a little bit, but even then, I don't.
Yeah.
That's just my writer brain kicking into overdrive.
So last night I watched this movie called Brotherhood of the Wolf, which I actually mentioned on the last episode that somebody recommended that I watch that movie. And that movie was a 2.5-hour French movie where there was a clear point between Act 1 and Act 2 where I was like, oh, there's like half an hour of extra stuff in here that's just jammed in that I didn't need. Like I started to check out, and then, the last hour of the movie is pretty decent, but it was like, woof, like somebody needed to make a hard cut here. Whereas I didn't really feel that in this movie.
No, it does. You can argue there's a bit of a turning point after the first hour where the status, I think they call that in screenwriting like the midpoint turn.
Mm-hmm.
But it's never, it's certainly not like a Kubrick movie where it's like an hour in Act 2. It just feels like a natural extension of the plot.
Right.
So,
yep.
Honestly, yeah, this movie is really dark, really brutal. One thing I will point out is that, again, we literally open to an idyllic shot of like an Afghani village, and then these Russian soldiers who speak like Americans roll in their tank, and it's just 5 or 10 minutes of just straight brutality.
Yeah,
right?
like hard to watch brutality.
Yeah, like I'm not squeamish at all when it comes to violence, and on a different podcast, I'll argue what may or may not be wrong with me. But even there's one particular moment in that first scene where I was like, I don't want to watch this.
Yeah.
Like, I actually had to look away.
Yeah, same here.
It is funny. I don't want to call out anyone specifically, but I saw someone on Letterboxd left a review where they basically just said, it took me a while to figure out that the Russians were the bad guys. And I was like, were you asleep through the first scene? Like, what do you mean?
Yeah,
it's like that Jennifer Lawrence meme where I'm like, what do you mean? Yeah.
So characters of people you may know. This is an interesting cast of characters. So the Russians, like you said, are all played by Americans. Jason Petronik playing Konstantin, probably the singular protagonist of the movie.
More or less our main character. Yeah.
Jason Petronik, most known as Michael from The Lost Boys. This is like right after he does that, which is kind of wild because he's like a teenager in that movie, and he's a full-on adult in this movie.
With glasses and everything.
And then the captain, the officer, Daskell, played by George Dzundza. He did a lot in the 90s. He was in like Basic Instinct and Crimson Tide. He also did 7 episodes of Grey's Anatomy as Harold O'Malley in like the 2000s.
Good for him.
Yeah,
Great.
so you may know him from there. I didn't, but I actually thought his performance was one of the best in the movie.
I think all the performances across the board are pretty good.
They're decent. I have one note about Stephen Baldwin's performance, maybe.
Okay.
One of the Baldwin brothers just so happens to be Justin Bieber's father-in-law from The Usual Suspects, looking like a Baldwin. You'll know who he is when you see this movie. A couple other people I want to talk about. Kaminsky, who's like the brash, moronic
I
character.
Need a woman.
Yeah, played by Don Harvey. Really great performance from him. Starting to dip into who this movie's for. Does it hold up to modern watch? One of the main Afghan characters is played by Stephen Bauer, who's actually Cuban. And maybe that's kind of the one thing that I would say actually doesn't hold up all that well in this movie is the fact that none of the Afghan people are played by Afghan people.
Yeah, like our Russian tank crew has like an informant, like an Afghani informant who's working with them.
Yeah.
Like a traitor, I guess you might say. I think he's played by like an Indian guy.
Yeah, Eric Avari. I know him from a number of things. Like he was in Mr. Deeds, he's in The Mummy, he's in Stargate.
Yeah.
I've like as soon as he came across the screen, I was like, oh, I know that guy.
Yeah. It's like, oh, this guy.
Yeah, which is again not great. I think it's the worst offender is definitely Stephen Bauer, who actually has a really great performance as the leader of the Afghans, Lacan. And it's just, that's one of those things where it's like, if this was done today, this would be
We would
done.
definitely not
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah. Whereas, with all the Russians played by Americans, that's a clear choice. Like, that's a creative decision that actually enhances the movie.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, having a white dude with brown face is not ideal.
Yeah. You'd think even in the 80s they would have been like, is this cool?
Yeah.
But they would have just railed a line of coke and did it anyway. So
nice.
That's Hollywood. That's show business, baby.
And this is directed by Kevin Reynolds, who, very interesting career. So this is his second feature film, first one being Fandango. After that, he did Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, which is a Kevin Costner movie.
Really?
And then after that, he did Waterworld a few years after Robin Hood.
So he became friends with Kevin Costner,
yes.
You might say.
With how much of a failure Waterworld was, his career kind of took a bit of a weird turn after that.
It drowned, you might say?
Yeah.
It became submerged.
Yeah, I mean, he does a few movies after that. They're just not movies that... I mean, he did The Count of Monte Cristo in 2002, but I don't know if that one's super well regarded, but...
With Gerard Butler? It doesn't matter, but okay. So he didn't, he did okay. It's just Waterworld was a tough one.
Yeah.
That's what's so brutal about show business, I feel, right? Is like...
You get one opportunity, and it's whatever your current opportunity is. And if that doesn't pan out, you're screwed.
You're screwed, basically, right? Whereas it's certainly true for directors that if they have one clunker or lemon, you might say, they can't always recover. But it seems like actors can be in schlock after schlock after schlock and still keep getting work.
Well,
there's always exceptions. I'm talking up my butt, probably.
No, I think you have a point. I mean, the difference is that as a director, you're kind of along with the movie for maybe several years. Like, it might take you several years from the time of inception to the time the final piece of editing is done, and then all of the press afterwards, where it takes up so much of your life, and like, you're such an integral part of all of the steps of the film.
Arguably the most integral part, right? Yeah.
So, if things go south, it is kind of more on your shoulders than anybody else's.
Yeah, I guess that's fair, right? Like,
and I mean, there's plenty of good performances in bad movies as well.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, I mean, Captain goes down with the ship, right?
Yeah. So who is this movie for? Does it hold up to a modern day watch? I think yes. This is, other than the issue that I said,
pretty modern.
Yeah.
It's well paced.
Yep. Pretty much a crowd pleaser. Like, Our House, everybody was a fan of. Both Jess and I really, really enjoyed with this one, and I couldn't see a lot of people being too upset by this.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's definitely brutal. It's a very harrowing movie.
There's some uncomfortable truths in this movie that you kind of have to reckon with. And,
yeah.
I think that this movie, it lives in a very gray area, even in of itself. Like, it portrays the Afghan people, as both people who have been done evil to, but they're also a very war-focused group of people.
Yeah,
so,
I thought it did a pretty decent job showing nuance. Like, so our main guy, Taj, who's sort of like,
he's the Khan.
He's the leader of his tribe.
Yep.
He's the leader of his village. Like, he proves to be a good man, but then he's got his cousin who's a complete profiteer and shithead, right? So they're showing, I like that they're like, oh, okay, like, there's two different sides to this, right? Like, not every Afghani person is a complete scoundrel.
And I guess, comparable movie to talk about, I think this is a movie that actually owes a lot of influence to going back to this one, is Mad Max Fury Road. I think that George Miller has even referenced this movie in the making of that one. I don't know if you kind of caught that while you were watching it, but there were several moments where I was like, oh, this feels like literally Mad Max just pulled this right from this movie.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, this was post Road Warrior, right? It was just pre Fury Road. Yeah, so I could definitely see that, because I mean, you're right. It's essentially almost a chase movie.
Yeah,
it's
more cat and mouse.
Yeah,
but yeah, no, it's very similar in its structure, in its portrayal of the different groups, even some of the big moments of the movie are actually feel very similar to each other.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, potentially.
Yeah.
Potentially.
So I'll talk about that a little bit more in the deep dive. I don't want to spoil too much at this point, but yeah, that's just one movie that really crossed my mind while I was watching it. So when to watch? Honestly, this is a pretty good Friday night movie, but I would probably have a good time with this anytime I watch it.
Yeah, this is an any-timer kind of movie.
Yep.
Definitely an evening kind of movie, though.
Yep.
You want to watch this under the cover of darkness so no one can see you crying.
Yeah. Where to watch? You're going to have to rent this one because, like I said, it kind of got buried twice when it first came out, and then post 9/11. I found this on Apple after a little bit of struggle, honestly. Like, on Apple, it says that this movie was released in 2008, which makes it even more difficult to actually find.
Right, because that's untrue.
Yeah.
I just found it on YouTube, honestly, which is kind of my go-to.
Did you rent it on YouTube?
I had to rent it,
okay,
yeah.
okay, cool.
But it was right there. It wasn't too hard to find.
Good. Yeah. So I think that this one is worth checking out because this is one that a lot of people have not seen. Like, it did really, really bad at the box office, like 180 grand. So
Oof, that is
basically nobody has seen this movie.
Right.
Even though it's like a pretty big Hollywood production, honestly.
Yeah, I guess. Like, it's a solid B+ feature.
Yeah, solid. Okay, and I think that's it for the deep dive.
I think you are correct.
I'm not correct.
No, you're right.
You're
wrong. Yeah. God, that's
you're right. You're wrong.
That's how much you've abused me over the years. I'm just so gaslit. I'm like, yes. This is the deep dive now.
And we will see you next time for the deep dive. Hopefully you go and check this one out because it is worth your time.
It's got tanks in it.
Yeah. That's actually, you know what, before we wrap this up, that's actually something I was thinking about as well, is that when have you seen a tank movie that you didn't have a decent time with? You know, Fury being a good one.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of any off the top of my head beyond that, but I think
there's at least 2 good tank movies.
I think we're due for at least like 2 more good tank movies.
I guess so, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what's the modern equivalent of a tank movie? Like a drone strike movie?
Probably
not as fun.
No, I think you would do something in space, like 4 people in like a little spacecraft traveling through the universe.
Hey, like Disney, if you're watching, just do like an X-Wing movie or something.
Yeah, yeah.
Do this, but with X-Wings or AT-AT or whatever you call it.
There's just something really compelling about like 4 people just, you know, stuck in the middle of nowhere by themselves, and that paranoia that sets in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even if they're the shitheads in the movie.
Especially then.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right, we will see you next time.
Bye.